God is great. All right, Proverbs 13. Let's call this one listening more than we speak. Sorry, let's call this one listening more than we speak. In this proverb, where both listening and speaking are going to seem to play a role as a sub theme, but the three passages that I found that deal with the whole concept of being careful of the way we speak are dwarfed by the 5 or 6 passages that seem to deal with the way in which we listen. And because we talk so much about the concept of wisdom and righteousness, I wanted to focus on these sub-themes. Understanding that wisdom and righteousness are still a thing here, with roughly, I think, 9 verses this time devoted to righteousness, but with roughly 15 by my count related to wisdom. Understanding that as opposed to directly talking about wisdom, a lot of it's going to take the form of wise counsel, with a few verses talking directly about wisdom. But focusing on those few verses related to speech and hearing. First, the 3 that I saw related to speech being verse 2, from the fruit of his mouth a man eats what is good, but the desires of the treacherous is for violence, or the desire of the treacherous is for violence. Verse 3, whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. Verse 5, the righteous hates falsehood, but the wicked brings shame and disgrace. However, those verses devoted to listening begin with verse 1. A wise son hears his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. Verse 10, by insolence comes nothing but strife, but with those who take advice is wisdom. Verse 13 reading, whoever despises the word brings destruction on himself, but he who reveres the commandment will be rewarded. Verse 14 similarly says, the teaching of the wise is a fountain of life, that one may turn away from the snares of death. With verse 18 saying, poverty and disgrace come to him who ignores instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is honored. And then finally, I guess the last one I saw was in verse 24. Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. The whole concept of discipline being presupposed on the concept that the kid is eventually going to listen or adhere to the lesson attached to the discipline. But the thing that might have most caught my attention related to that whole concept of hearing really goes to verse 19, which reads, a desire fulfilled is sweet to the soul, but to turn away from evil is an abomination to fools. That being a verse that seems to have more to do with wisdom, also incorporates that whole concept of listening, understanding we can get locked into patterns in which turning really costs us more than our pride will allow us to pay. I heard a judge say it this way in explaining the jury instruction, an illustration I use from time to time. He was the only judge I remember going this far in depth to help us understand why they give the jury instruction that says, do not discuss the evidence before you've heard it all. Because he said this, look, we got 2 sets of lawyers in the courtroom, one for the defendant, one against. Understand that we don't need any more parties to this case. And if you early on state an opinion based on a part of the evidence, but you end up hearing a piece of evidence that contradicts what you have now gone on the record as stating to other people, you may feel invested in defending an opinion based upon part of the facts. And now you've made yourself a party to the case. No longer able to simply listen to the evidence, you now feel the need to defend the position you took before you heard all you needed to know. And so verse 19 reminds me of that principle where it once again says in the latter half, to turn away from evil is an abomination to fools. Understanding that we can all fall into that trap to the degree we are tempted to speak before we've heard all that we need to know. Which reminds me of another proverb that says, in Proverbs 18, verse 13, if one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. As hard as it can be, as we sometimes say, my prayer for you is my prayer for me, that God help give us the patience to hear before we speak or answer too quickly.